Hi, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Ben Lee from LoopUp, and this is the second of a kind of partner-orientated webinar series that we've been doing. I've got two people joining me today, but Matt, I guess I'll start with you. Do you want to just say hi and introduce yourself briefly before I get to the real special guests we've got today? Sorry, not to play you down.
No, that's absolutely fine. So my name's Matt Kirby. I'm a VP of Strategic Alliances here at LoopUp. Strategic Alliances to us, Microsoft is obviously a huge alliance partner to us, but my role is to identify and onboard partners that require the capabilities of LoopUp on a global telephony basis, and we're going to be coming into some of those topics here today.
Good stuff. And then Taimoor, joined by Taimoor Husain from Microsoft. Would you mind just sort of filling us in with what you do at Microsoft and a little bit of your background? That would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Thanks, LoopUp, for having me here. My name is Taimoor. I work for Microsoft. I'm currently looking at our strategy globally for telcos as it relates to modern work. Modern work is a body of platforms that we have that includes Office 365, M365, and of course Teams. And so it's good to be here. I've been in the UC industry for about 20 odd years, 22 years. I started my career at Cisco, spent a lot of time there, and then I've been at Microsoft for the past 11 years.
Good stuff. Well, I guess as a starting point, I think what we were looking to talk about as we developed the conversation was kind of getting into Teams telephony or Teams phone, and how that works. But I thought it would be a nice place to kind of start with, over the last 18 months or so, what we have seen both through our partner engagements and our customer engagements is there's been a real spike for obvious reasons in the uptake of Teams and also in Teams telephony, and that's been a challenge for a lot of companies around the world, both those who are having to adopt it and onboard that technology themselves, and also for partners who have been helping customers do that. I'm kind of curious, what's that been like on the inside, if you like, working for Microsoft during that period? Has that been particularly something memorable, or is that a bit business as usual because you guys are always innovating and driving stuff forward anyway?
Yeah, I think definitely it's sometimes difficult for me to quantify it because the pandemic has affected people in different ways, and I feel very empathetic towards people who it's affected seriously. And it's not always great to talk about the good side and the bad side of the pandemic. So it's always a difficult question for me to answer. But I'll put it in terms of numbers. So when we were looking at January of 2020, before any of us knew that this was happening, we made an announcement recently that we were at 20 million Teams commercial users at that time. Mm-hmm. And that was a pretty good number. We felt pretty good about it, given Teams had only been around for about a year and a half, and so. Yeah. But then, the pandemic really caused a lot of organizations to digitally transform. Right, digital transformation has been on top of mind for most CIOs for a long, long time, but because of this occurrence. Everybody had to start to think about how do we make our employees productive? How do we operate in this new normal? And so that really drove a lot of traction. And I would be lying to you if we said that we were ready for it. We were not ready for it, in the sense that we had to get all hands on deck to make sure we could address the scale and demand, and we did. I think we did a fantastic job. There were some weeks where organizations in countries around the world were onboarding schools, and we were seeing 2 to 3 million students in a particular country coming online on one particular day, Monday of in May. So there's some interesting things happening. And the reason I gave you that 20 million number in the beginning was, if you look at our most recent announcement at Ignite, we just announced close to 300 million users for Teams commercial users. So that's not even 10x, that's 15x growth in a year and a half, which for this is absolutely tremendous. We also showed some numbers around 80 billion calls a month, or minutes a month, sorry, 1 million plus or 1 billion plus calls for us over the year. So, I mean, we are looking at some serious growth. It's the fastest growing application or service in Microsoft history. We talk about that internally a lot as well. So it's extremely it's an honor to be part of that. It's something that we'll tell for a long time about how this other side or this other story of the pandemic brought Teams to life. Yeah,
good stuff. And I guess that's kind of Teams itself as the communications collaborations platform. And the stuff that we're involved with, either direct to customers or through partners, is around bringing their telephony to Teams, which is Teams Phone as the correct terminology, I believe. But do you find that a lot of customers who have deployed Teams are now looking at deploying Teams Phone to help with, consolidating their platforms and driving that? There seemed to be, there was the debate in the early days when Skype for Business was new, or was starting to go away with online, and Teams was new around, feature functionality. I think from where I stand, it's very apparent that, Teams as a phone system platform is where it needs to be, right? And obviously there's room for improvement. There is in everything. But do you sort of see an equivalent uptick in customers looking to drive Teams Phone usage alongside the investment they've made in Teams now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we initially saw a large spike when everybody went home last year. People were trying to figure out, okay, how do I still get my employees to be productive? But all the offices are closed, everybody's in quarantine, etc. And then so we saw an initial spike, and then it kind of faded away a little bit because people weren't really sure how long this thing will last, when they'll be back in the office, and so on. And then it started to really pick up right after people realized that this is going to be here for a while. And so we've now got, we also announced 80 million plus Teams users who use Teams to make phone calls, right? Mm-hmm. So if you think about percentage-wise in terms of the overall Teams seats, but also in terms of where Teams phone users were before, it's a massive, massive growth as well. The other thing I think that we are different in Microsoft has been talking about this for a while, is that even though we have a fantastic ecosystem of devices like phone devices and so on, we've really been advocating the fact that communications needs to come into the fold of productivity and collaboration, and it needs to be available in any device, in any location. That's been our mantra since back in the Link days, right? Yeah. And so when people realize that they've kind of left their PBXs and their desk phones locked up in a building for a year, right? That really became a big realization for people to understand, to say, hey, we need a much more flexible solution. We need a solution that kind of follows our users and not follows a particular device or follows a particular piece of hardware that's sitting in our basement. So, so that's been pretty interesting to understand. And we've always said that single purpose devices like a hard phone, have to be much more or much better. We don't really see the ROI on a $400 phone.
No, sure.
So, I mean, just following on from what you're saying there, because I mean, when we're talking to customers, and our proposition is very strong in the enterprise and multinational customer space. I know obviously Teams and telephony is looking to address customers of all size, but for the audience here in terms of looking at multinational space, have you kind of seen any particular customer types that are or particular verticals where Teams voice adoption has been particularly successful, and if so, any reasons why you think that might be? What are the factors around that?
It's a tough question. I wouldn't say that I would single out any particular verticals. I think the way that we are structured in terms of how we interact with our customers, there's a few verticals that come to the top of mind, but there might be a little bit of a bias there just because we talk to them a lot more, right? So we hear a lot from financial services customers. We hear a lot from healthcare. Education has been one of the biggest surprises for us from a Teams perspective, just because education has kind of been stalled, right? And so Teams has provided a lot of universities, schools out there to be able to reach out and continue curriculum and activities. Public sector as well, right? Public sector in a lot of countries has been closed, government offices and so on. So those are some of them that I would say have been really focused, top of mind. But I don't think it's been to any particular sector. We've seen some traction in retail, we've seen traction in manufacturing, and so it's really across the board. I don't think I could narrow it down to say these are the ones that are standing out to me.
No, good stuff. I mean, I guess sort of getting a slightly more nuts and bolts question without getting too technical, but in terms of delivery for telephony inside Teams, there was two ways that you can do that, and we'll talk about a third, perhaps in a minute or two. But that was you had either calling plans where you guys, Microsoft, were the carrier and people took numbers from you or ported numbers to you, or there was direct routing, which a customer can either deploy themselves or a lot of partners have built service offerings around. Do you think there was ever sort of a clear choice to help steer between whether a customer should go for calling plans or direct routing, or my personal favorite being a consultant is the consultant answer of it depends.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think we sort of steer anybody one way or the other. I think the idea behind calling plans is more to provide the customer that choice. There are some use cases where calling plans are fit for purpose, but there's a lot of use cases that direct routing or our newly launched capability Operator Connect are fit for purpose as well. So it really just depends on what the customer is trying to achieve, what their goals are, who they want to partner with, and how they want to partner, and what they want to get from their calling solution as well, right? Some people like a lot of flexibility and they want to own the equipment and they want to see every media flow going through predictable sources. That's going to be direct routing, right? Some people want a very, very simple solution like calling plans, where they just go to a single purchasing place and be able to assign numbers and away they go. That's going to be calling plans, and then there's going to be something in the middle. So I don't think we steer people in any particular direction. I think it just depends on the needs. The good thing is, I will say that across our three purchasing scenarios, we allow people to mix and match. So if you've got a large organization or a small organization that wants to have some users that have calling plans, so let's say I have a bunch of users who are in the far away from me, and I don't know where they live. I don't know if they have any relationship with a telco or whatever. I can get calling plans for them, but then I could do direct routing for the rest of my users, or I could do Operator Connect for the remaining. So it really just kind of depends on the use cases.
And I guess, this isn't really a question, I suppose. It's more of a statement that, feel free to disagree with. But it's, all throughout Teams, there is a choice. There's a choice for how you collaborate on a document together, how you secure that document, how you share it, how you, manage your tasks, etc. And it's, I guess, to someone on the outside, it could seem like kind of the direct routing offering, particularly through partners, could be seen as a competitor to calling plans. It's the same thing almost, but one's Microsoft native and one is through someone else. But again, what you've just said there is ultimately actually there's different pathways depending on what choice you want. It's all about actually giving the customer the flexibility to achieve what they need in the way they need to, right?
Yeah, and this comes up a lot, and I don't really necessarily see calling plans be competitor to direct routing or Operator Connect, because I won't get into the monetary commercial margin benefits of what they are, but we don't make a lot of money on calling plans. It's not our intent. Our intent is really to drive more Teams users to be able to communicate the way that they want from the application that they love. And so whether that happens through calling plans and direct routing, we don't really care that much. It's not really that, we're not going to make billions of dollars selling calling plans. That's what I'm trying to say. So our goal is to really enable Teams and Teams users.
Good stuff.
I just want to come back to one of the things that you mentioned earlier on, Taimoor, in the early part here, where you were saying that for the reasons around the pandemic, we now sit here with a huge install base of customers that are using Teams, for collaboration, meetings, etc. Now we're clearly in the voice space, and there is a jump, if you like, from that collaboration into getting customers into using it as their enterprise telephony. So, from your perspective, when you're speaking to customers, what are you kind of seeing and saying are the things that they need to be considering as they take that journey into considering Microsoft Teams for enterprise telephony, to not use an old parlance from the Microsoft days, but making it their PBX across the business?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think this is a business goal, right? That we have to figure out what are customers' goals. Before we used to talk a lot about how it's beneficial to bring all of your communication and collaboration together, right? So that it's not happening in silos. We believe that if you're going to use let's forget about Teams even for a second, right? If you're going to use any collaboration tool, if you're going to use Slack, or if you're going to use Google Workplace, or whatever is your favorite collaboration environment, when you're talking to somebody either on a chat modality, or you're doing a one-to-one call, or you're doing a meeting, you want to keep your communication all in a single context pane, right? And the reason is because in that context pane, then you have history, then you have the ability to understand what conversations happened before, how many times I've talked to this person. And then when you couple it, actually, Microsoft's real benefit is the platform, right? So when you couple it with things like Viva Insights and things like having intelligent meeting and transcription and recording and all that kind of stuff all brought into one place. So, for example, if I'm on a Teams call with somebody, I record it, I transcribe it, it's in my chat history with that person. I can go search for when Matt said, LoopUp, and I can go right to that particular place. So that kind of thing is really, really powerful. But as soon as you take calling and you put it out in its own silo, then you're struggling, right? Because you're struggling with, okay, I'm talking to this one person, but their identity is completely different on this other system. I want to call them, but I can't click them. Okay, I have to translate. Now I have to do a manual work to figure out, okay, Matt has this phone number or this extension, and I have to go to this other solution to now, it requires a lot of power for us to be able to translate that by ourselves versus to have it consolidated in one place. So I think people are starting to look at that very seriously now. That's why I said, even if you remove that from the Teams context, I think people understand that this has to happen, right? We can't have isolated systems. We can, but it just takes a lot, and we get a broken experience. And that broken experience is what people are running away from.
It's kind of the core tenet of the UC platforms, isn't it? That the unified was originally meant to, be that was bringing these things together, and it was always kind of included the telephony, but then, things sort of telephony kind of always seems to get left behind a little bit, and then has to play catch up for various reasons. But then I guess, again, in our experience, you tend to find companies that have kind of gone through for want of a better word, the modernization of the telephony platform. They've done that consolidation and the migration. It's like you do it, you get caught up. And then that's the beauty of something like Teams, that it's always evergreen, it's always evolving. You're always kind of at the cutting edge of whatever is coming there, I guess.
Yeah, and also our goal is really to uncomplicate things, right? We build Teams from the ground up to be a cloud first, amazing solution that, I've been in my previous life in front of a whiteboard answering questions like, okay, what codec do you use, and how much bandwidth is that codec going to use, and what happens when this server goes down, and so we really want to uncomplicate all of that. Like, we don't want to, those discussions don't need to be had anymore. Because we're going to provide, we've got 200 plus POPs of Azure around the world. And so we provide media services across all of those POPs, whether it's Azure Front Door or meeting capabilities and so on. And so the point is that we want to follow the user, to follow the use cases across, and bring our communication stack to it, right? We don't have to get into the details of that. That's the whole power of a distributed cloud platform.
I wish I could agree, which I do, but you're bringing to mind a conversation I had with a customer a couple of years ago where they were insisting to know in Teams what the specific media encryption algorithm for a particular point, and it's like, guys, you've put your email up there, you've put your files up there, like, your voice and your everything else is like, where let's put this into context. but anyway, I guess I'd like to touch a little bit on Operator Connect, if I may. We kind of talked about calling plans and direct routing were the two original choices, and we've got this third one kind of not on the horizon. It's available, and it's reached general availability, I believe, a month or so ago, and there's a new wave of partners kind of coming through the certification process now. But I believe you've been pretty heavily involved with Operator Connect. You're able to give us a quick summary of kind of what it is and how it sits compared to calling plans and direct routing?
Yeah, absolutely. So it all started when we started to think about, okay, how do we empower service providers, operators, telcos to be able to be, closer partners with us, and also to be able to understand how to productize and bring their PSTN services or other operator services to teams. It was possible before as well. You could do kind of hosted, managed direct routing and kind of glue together some SPCs, and we did make a few things possible. But we really wanted to take that to the next level and develop a framework in which we worked with telcos very closely to make sure that from both ends, right, that we get quality. So from Microsoft's end, we wanted to make sure that we have some principles around network and connectivity on how we work with partners and telcos. So, some integrations into billing and number provisioning and all the great telco stuff that we all know about. And then on the other side, we want to make sure that telcos who are really driving a lot of voice in our customers can get better support, better engineering sort of engagements, and so on. So we really wanted to provide a framework that allowed us both to interconnect properly and on a much more substantial level. And so we built up this Operator Connect framework. Now, the fundamental core is still direct routing, but the governance around it is what Operator Connect really is. And then, of course, with that, we provide a bunch of APIs and platforms and portals to be able to do that integration that I was talking about. So that was kind of a big deal. And one of the reasons why we did that is because we've kind of dubbed this year, our fiscal year starts July, we've kind of dubbed this year as the year of the phone. And so that means that, phone is one of our biggest priorities this year, for the simple fact that lots and lots of people are using Teams to do a lot of cool things. We want them to also be using Teams for their communication, for their phone devices, and it's working, right? We've got 80 million plus, and it's growing really, really rapidly. And so with that, we said, okay, this is the best time to figure out how we work with telcos in a much more meaningful way, and how we can bring a more enhanced value-based proposition to our customers, so that they can partner with Microsoft and Teams, which is a fantastic platform, but also bring their carrier with them, who they have great relationships with. So those are the two things that we're trying to bring together with Operator Connect.
Good stuff.
And I mean, you've actually covered a few of the points that I was going to raise there, but I mean, just to sort of press you a little bit further on a couple of other things in terms of the in terms of the program. So you mentioned there about having a program, if you like, that kind of almost like became a byword for quality. Those that are going to be in the partner in the Operator Connect program, they're kind of in that quality space. But outside of that, what other things are the requirements on the operators in there which you feel are fundamental to somebody perhaps getting in that program?
Yeah, so I think that we're obviously looking for telcos that are really great at working with teams, right? We want to make sure that you have a good understanding of what the value proposition for teams is. We want to make sure that your quality is probably going to be the biggest bar. We do a lot of testing. We do a lot of integration capabilities before we sort of certify to say, hey, this provider is there. And then we have a bunch of requirements, right? We have connectivity requirements. We have integration requirements, and then we have redundancy requirements, high availability redundancy requirements, right? Before, if you had a single SPC or a pair of SPCs in one location, that would have been totally fine to provide, hosted direct routing. But with Operator Connect, you've got to have dual redundancy, geo redundancy. It just really sort of opens up, and the reason is because that way we can ensure to our customers to say, hey, if you're talking to a partner or a telco in this program, you're getting the best quality service that you could probably get, which is backed by their SLA and our statement of quality. So I think from a requirements perspective, it's pretty stringent. We do want to make sure that we work with telcos who can provide a certain quality bar. Having said that, we also are cognizant, and we want to make sure that customers have the choice, that if they are working with a provider or would like to work with a provider, that we can bring that provider to them in whichever way possible. Whether it's Operator Connect, whether it's direct routing, that's all going to be possible. Yeah.
And I think one thing from our perspective, because we're in the multinational space, I think, which is upmost and key that we see with our customers is the regulatory approval, the licensing requirement, from an operator, if you're doing that end-to-end cloud telephony, that you're licensed to be able to provide the service for the customer in those markets. We're certainly seeing a lot of that. That's something that Microsoft looks for as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the requirements is that any countries that you provide coverage in, you've got to be a licensed telco to be able to provide those phone numbers and so on. So that is absolutely part of the requirements as well. Yeah.
Good stuff. I think it's fair to say that that's something that we're in the process of going through some of those validations that you talked about. But as with any of these things, it's a pretty long process and pretty complicated process. So looking forward to getting through that. But I guess for our current customers or other customers or partners who have end users already on calling plans or direct routing. I mean, you said that Operator Connect is essentially a direct routing proposition at its core. Does that sort of provide a bit of reassurance that Operator Connect is not something that a customer has to migrate to? It's only if it suits or for convenience. It's not like calling plans or direct routing are being phased out in favor of the new kid on the block.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think it's important to realize that Operator Connect, is basically a framework or an envelope around direct routing that allows us to be able to deliver this more seamlessly, to be able to help telcos interoperate with us a little bit better, to provide a better solution to our customers. So customer benefits because they get a better high quality solution. The operator benefits because they get a lot more streamlined service from us as well. So nothing new. Direct routing isn't going anywhere. Calling plans are not going anywhere. Our goal with all of these solutions is to really provide customers with the choice that they need to be able to bring telephony into Teams.
Cool. I did have one follow-up on the calling plans. Calling plans were something available from the Skype for Business Online days, and there was kind of a big spike in the amount of countries that got onboarded, and then things went a little bit quiet, and then there was a more recent little peak as a few more countries kind of came along. Is there ambition still there that should we be expecting calling plans to be expanding, or is it kind of they're holding where they are? I know obviously I can't ask specifics and I don't want to get into specifics, but that is one of the choices when customers are looking at, do they go calling plans or another solution? It's it's a pretty black or white. If calling plans aren't available, they have to do something else. Should people be kind of holding their breaths there and waiting to see?
Well, the thing is, it's kind of interesting. We talked a little bit about the pandemic. I'm going to rewind for a quick second here. Another thing that kind of changed, I'd love to say the Teams got all the attention, but we saw a lot of really interesting competitors also capture some of the market, right? And so we initially had sort of paused on expanding on calling plan markets and so on, because we really wanted to sort of partner with our telco partners. Mm-hmm. But then at the same time, our competitors were moving in a different direction where they were announcing and launching new markets and so on. And so we started to look like we didn't really have a full grasp or handle on the telephony solution that we've got. And so we thought, okay, we have to at least be complete in our solution. Our customers may have different choices to make, but we want to provide a completeness of portfolio. And that's kind of why you're seeing some calling plan expansion happen. I think you can expect to see a little bit more as well. But in general, we want to make sure that we are complete, feature complete when customers are comparing us for, from one place to the other. And also be able to give those customers a choice in those countries as well. So that's kind of the advantage here. We're not trying to be a telco of the world at all. We want to be good partners, but also we want our customers to be able to have confidence that our solution is best in market.
Yeah, I think because we're talking about partners and cloud telephony in the sort of multinational space. You mentioned earlier on that when you were kind of conceiving Operator Connect, it was to bring, if you like, some simplicity to customers, and then for kind of creating a program for telcos to help them and give them more support around them going to their customers. But what about partners that are neither a telco and they've got customers that they're trying to bring in? How do you kind of see a partner that's perhaps not in the voice space that wants to look at addressing their customers, bring voice to them? Where do you see Operator Connect fitting versus a direct routing proposition?
Yeah, I think that it's a good question. So, Operator Connect is very much a telco specific or operator specific program. So I think that other partners that are not going to be part of Operator Connect can certainly leverage partnerships that they make with telcos. And I'm getting a lot of these questions as well in terms of, okay, we should probably figure out how we can join up like an SI who've got great managed services and adoption and change management, deployment, et cetera, and a telco that can provide really great connectivity and network services and telephony services. And how does a joint value proposition sort of emerge from that partnership, right? So I think that's what I would recommend partners who are not Operator Connect partners to leverage this program, because again, the momentum is there, the customers are there, the need and demand is there, right? We just have to make sure we're bringing the right value offerings to our customers. And so I think it's a successful formula.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, I think we're about at time there. Just knocking over past half the hour, so sorry about that. But thank you very much for joining us today. And I guess also from Matt, we've really appreciated that conversation. It's super interesting, and thank you very much for your time.
Hey, thanks for having me, and looking forward to working with LoopUp on Operator Connect as well in the future.
Likewise.
Good stuff.
Perfect. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.